The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the city courthouse, casting long, golden streaks across the polished marble floors. The building was alive with the muted hum of activity, footsteps echoing off the high ceilings, the occasional scrape of a chair, murmured conversations bouncing softly from one courtroom to another. It was just another busy Tuesday, at least to the average visitor. But for those inside Courtroom 4B, today would become unforgettable in a way no one could have predicted. Officer Daniels adjusted his uniform as he entered the courtroom, his polished boots clicking against the tile in a rhythm that drew the attention of several spectators. At his side trotted Rex, a Belgian Malinois with a sleek coat and eyes that seemed to carry both intelligence and loyalty in equal measure. He wasn't just any dog, he was one of the department's top K-9 officers, trained for tracking, search and rescue, and narcotics detection. Yet today, the focus wasn't on a thrilling chase or a tense arrest. Today, Rex's presence alone seemed to ripple quietly through the room, though no one yet knew why. Among the crowd sat Lily, a 3-year-old girl perched on her mother's lap, her small hands gripping the edge of the seat tightly. Her mother, Clara, adjusted her daughter's cardigan, smiling softly at her. Lily was quiet and shy around strangers, often hiding behind her mother's shoulder when someone looked too closely. But today her eyes were wide and bright, locked on the dog that walked calmly by Officer Daniels' side. She wasn't the only one noticing him, but the intensity in her gaze suggested something far deeper than mere fascination. The courtroom's chatter quieted as the judge entered, gavel in hand. Lawyers straightened papers nervously, and the court reporter tapped her fingers lightly against the keyboard. Officer Daniels nodded respectfully, guiding Rex to a designated spot near the witness stand. Rex sat obediently, his posture immaculate, every muscle alert yet calm. He glanced briefly at the spectators, nostrils flaring softly, as if sensing the anticipation that had already begun to mount, though no one realized it yet. Clara whispered to her husband, "Look at her, she's never been this focused before." Her husband, Michael, glanced down at Lily. "I know, it's like she knows him or something." Lily's tiny hand twitched, pointing ever so slightly at Rex. She murmured something, just a whisper, but it carried the weight of certainty. "That dog," she said. Clara hushed her gently. "SHH, Lily, be quiet." But Lily wasn't listening. Her eyes stayed fixed on Rex, and she leaned forward slightly in her mother's lap, tiny body tense with fascination. Even from across the room, it was noticeable. Spectators whispered quietly, glancing at the child who seemed more entranced by the dog than by the proceedings around her. Officer Daniels began his testimony. His voice was steady, professional, and yet there was a warmth that came naturally when speaking about Rex. He recounted stories of search and rescue missions in the dead of night, of missing children found through Rex's impeccable tracking skills. He spoke of suspects located in abandoned buildings and contraband uncovered in places no human could have searched without assistance. The courtroom listened intently, some skeptical, some awed. "Rex is not just a dog," Daniels said, kneeling slightly to adjust Rex's harness. "He's trained to save lives, to protect people, and to work as part of a team. And like any team member, his instincts are invaluable. What he does is often beyond what we can explain, but it works." Lily's hand rose, almost unconsciously, pointing again. She whispered something else, this time louder. "Rex." Her mother's eyes widened. She quickly lowered Lily's hand, whispering, "Honey, SHH, sit down." But Lily's fascination only grew. She squirmed slightly in her seat, leaning toward Rex, her little fingers pointing insistently. Michael chuckled softly, nervously glancing at the people around them. "She's going to get us in trouble," he whispered. Yet no one in the room could have predicted just how remarkable this moment would become. There was something in Lily's gaze, something unspoken, as if she were seeing more than just a police dog. There was recognition, an instinctive connection that transcended words. Meanwhile, Rex remained perfectly still, as though aware of the tiny eyes upon him. He shifted slightly, a muscle twitching in his jaw but never moved from his position. Officer Daniels noticed it, a flicker of awareness in the dog's expression. He didn't say anything, he didn't need to, but he felt it too. Something about this child was different. The courtroom continued to follow Officer Daniels' testimony, yet their attention began to shift subtly. The murmurs of the spectators quieted further, and more than a few glanced toward the child who seemed utterly absorbed by the dog. A sense of anticipation, almost imperceptible at first, began to fill the room. It was as if the calm, ordinary morning had suddenly become charged with something extraordinary. During a pause, the bailiff called for a short recess. Some people left their seats, stretching their legs, but Lily didn't move. She stayed perched on her mother's lap, eyes fixed on Rex. She whispered again, so softly that only her mother could hear, "I know him, I know him." Clara frowned, unsure how to respond. "Lily, honey, what do you mean?" I know him," Lily repeated, nodding seriously. Her tiny fingers twitched as she pointed again. "That's Rex from before." Michael looked puzzled. "From before?" Clara's eyes met Michael's, a mix of curiosity and worry. What does she mean? She was only a baby then. But Lily's focus didn't waver. Her gaze locked on Rex with unshakable intensity. She wasn't simply staring. She was observing, memorizing, recognizing. It was uncanny in its precision. Officer Daniels, noticing the tiny figure pointing at his partner, paused briefly. He crouched slightly and gave Rex a soft command. Rex responded obediently, sitting straighter, ears perked, eyes scanning the courtroom, almost as if acknowledging the child. There was a subtle moment of connection, a quiet understanding that went unnoticed by most adults, but which would soon become the center of everyone's attention. As the recess ended, the courtroom began to fill again. Spectators returned to their seats, lawyers shuffled papers, and the judge called the room to order. The mundane rhythm of court was restored, yet the air felt different. There was anticipation now, a tension that hinted at something extraordinary about to unfold. Little Lily adjusted in her mother's lap, her small hand twitching as if ready to point again. Her lips pressed together in concentration, eyes wide, unblinking, as though she were preparing for a moment that no one else could predict. In the calm before the storm, the room had unknowingly paused for a tiny figure who saw what others could not, a connection that would soon silence the courtroom entirely. As the court session resumed, Officer Daniels stood straight and addressed the room with the calm authority of a seasoned law enforcement professional. His voice carried the weight of experience, yet it softened whenever he spoke about Rex. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this dog isn't just a member of the force. He's my partner, my friend, and one of the most intelligent K-9 officers I've ever worked with. His work saves lives, and today, I want to share some of his most remarkable stories." Rex shifted slightly, his ears twitching at Daniel's voice. He remained perfectly still, but there was a quiet alertness in his gaze, a subtle acknowledgement that he understood the significance of the moment. The courtroom, still bustling with murmurs, began to settle. Jurors straightened in their seats, the judge leaned forward, and spectators focused their attention on the officer and his remarkable companion. But among all these attentive adults, one little girl's eyes glimmered differently, intense, focused, unwavering. Lily had not blinked once since the court session began again. Officer Daniels began recounting Rex's missions in meticulous detail. He described a freezing winter night when Rex helped locate a missing child in the woods, tracking her scent for miles through snow and ice. The courtroom listened in rapt attention, imagining the child shivering, lost in the dark forest, and a dog tirelessly following the faintest trace of her presence. Some jurors exchanged glances, impressed by the dog's abilities. Others whispered about how intelligent and loyal K-9 units could be. Lily's tiny hand twitched and she whispered under her breath, "That's him, that's him." Her mother leaned over and gently tried to hush her, but the child's fascination only grew. It wasn't just a casual interest. There was recognition in her voice, a certainty that went beyond what words could describe. Michael, her father, glanced down in quiet amazement. She's never done that before, he murmured to his wife. The next story Officer Daniels shared was equally captivating. He described a high-risk mission where Rex and he had to enter an abandoned warehouse. A suspect was hiding, armed and dangerous. Rex had tracked him through narrow corridors, silently signaling his location until the officers could make their move safely. The suspect was apprehended without anyone getting hurt, all thanks to Rex's intuition and training. The courtroom hung on every word. Even seasoned lawyers and police officers in attendance could feel the tension in the story, as if they had been inside that warehouse themselves. Rex sat silently during the entire account, his eyes moving slowly around the room, taking in the audience, but occasionally returning to Lily. There was something unspoken in his gaze, a subtle acknowledgement, almost as if he recognized her interest and was quietly responding. No one else in the courtroom noticed it. After all, he was a dog, and dogs were animals, weren't they? But anyone who knew K-9 officers well understood that they noticed far more than humans realized. Lily's whispers grew louder. "Rex, Rex," she repeated, her small fingers pointing insistently toward him. Her parents exchanged concerned glances. "Honey," Clara whispered, "please sit down, everyone's watching." But Lily couldn't. She squirmed, leaning toward Rex, her gaze unbroken. Michael gently held her, trying to calm her without discouraging her. He knew this wasn't ordinary fascination. He had seen that instinct before, in animals and in children, a connection that was deeper than curiosity. As Officer Daniels continued, he shared another story, one of courage and skill that left the courtroom gasping. A terrified woman had called the police, claiming she had seen a suspicious man near her home. Rex was deployed to investigate. Within minutes, he had located the suspect, who was attempting to flee, and his alert had allowed officers to intervene safely. "Rex doesn't just follow commands," Officer Daniels explained. "He anticipates danger, senses fear, and responds instinctively. He's not just a dog, he's a protector." The courtroom was captivated, but their attention kept shifting toward the little girl who refused to look anywhere else. She had been quiet for over an hour, absorbing the stories, memorizing every detail, and pointing subtly but with unwavering certainty. Witnesses later described the moment as surreal, a tiny child whose presence commanded as much attention as the testimony itself. Lily's parents whispered to each other, amazed. "She remembers something," Clara said softly. "But what?" Before Michael could respond, Lily's voice rang out, small but clear. "That's Rex from before." The courtroom froze instantly. All eyes turned to the little girl, shocked at her sudden declaration. Even Officer Daniels, who had spent years training and working with K-9 units, paused mid-sentence. "From before?" he asked gently, crouching slightly to meet her gaze. "Yes," Lily exclaimed, nodding vigorously. "He helped my daddy." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. The judge raised an eyebrow, lawyers glanced at one another, and spectators leaned forward, intrigued. How could a 3-year-old remember a police dog from an incident she had been too young to witness clearly? Something remarkable was unfolding, and no one could look away. Clara explained softly to Officer Daniels. "Months ago, Rex helped Michael during a search near our neighborhood. Lily was too young to remember fully, but—" Her voice trailed off as she gestured to her daughter, who continued pointing at Rex, eyes shining with certainty. Rex, as if sensing the connection, shifted slightly and let out a soft, low whine, tail wagging gently. He had recognized something too, perhaps not the memory itself, but the presence of a family linked to a moment of heroism and trust. Officer Daniels smiled, touched by the subtle magic of the situation. A dog and a child, strangers in many ways, yet connected in a way the adults could barely understand. The courtroom's energy changed. What had been a standard testimony became a scene of wonder and human connection. The adults had come to hear about a dog's feats, but they were now witnessing the quiet miracle of recognition, instinct and memory through the eyes of a child. Every spectator felt it, the weight of the moment, the silent awe that descended like a warm, invisible blanket over everyone in the room. Lily leaned forward, whispering, "He remembers me. I remember him." Her small voice was filled with certainty, yet soft enough that only her parents and Officer Daniels could hear. For the first time in that courtroom session, the line between human and animal seemed to blur. Rex's calm, intelligent gaze met Lily's excited, yet unwavering eyes. There was no command, no prompt, only instinct and recognition. The bond was subtle but profound. In that brief, silent moment, the room itself seemed to pause, holding its collective breath as something extraordinary quietly unfolded. Officer Daniels smiled at Lily, kneeling slightly to her level. "You remember him?" he asked softly. Lily nodded eagerly. She was barely 3 years old, yet she had instinctively recognized a hero who had once saved her father. The courtroom leaned in, curious, captivated, and almost reverent. It was a moment that no one had anticipated, and yet it felt perfectly natural. As the session continued, the audience struggled to focus on the words of the officer. Stories of Rex's heroism were now intertwined with the child's innocent recognition. Every word, every gesture, every subtle movement of the dog became amplified by the unspoken bond forming in plain sight. People later said it was like watching a story come alive in real time, a tale of courage, memory, and the quiet intuition of a child whose small hands could point out the extraordinary. By the end of the testimony, the room was silent, not from boredom or discipline, but from awe. Adults sat transfixed, jurors leaned forward, and the judge paused, glancing at the child and the dog with a smile he didn't bother hiding. Something extraordinary had happened, all without a single person anticipating it. A reminder that sometimes the smallest witnesses see the most important truths. The recess had barely ended when the courtroom slowly settled back into its rhythm. Lawyers shuffled papers, spectators whispered quietly, and Officer Daniels straightened his uniform, nodding respectfully to the judge. Rex sat obediently beside him, alert yet calm, tail flicking softly in response to the faint noises around the room. It was as if the dog himself sensed that something unusual was about to happen, though no one else could quite see it yet. Little Lily remained on her mother's lap, eyes wide, fixed entirely on Rex. She hadn't blinked for what felt like hours, her tiny hands folded in front of her but twitching now and then as if they could barely contain the excitement building inside her. "That's him," she whispered again, just enough for her mother to hear. Clara leaned down, brushing a loose strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "Honey, be quiet. Let the grown-ups talk," she whispered softly, though her own voice trembled with a mix of amusement and curiosity. Michael, sitting on the other side of Clara, watched Lily closely. "She's never done this before," he murmured. "It's like she's memorizing him or something. It's uncanny." Clara nodded, her eyes fixed on her daughter. "It's more than that," she replied. "She's recognizing him, she remembers." Lily leaned forward slightly, pointing with a tiny finger. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like childlike fascination, a simple attraction to a dog. But anyone paying close attention, anyone who had ever worked with K-9 officers, could sense there was something more profound. This wasn't mere curiosity. It was recognition, instinctive and immediate, a child remembering something she had never fully understood. As Officer Daniels continued his testimony, he moved seamlessly between stories of Rex's past missions. He described an intense search operation that took place in the dead of winter, when a small child had wandered into the woods and become lost among the snow-laden trees. The child's cries had been faint, nearly imperceptible over the wind and ice. But Rex had tracked the scent tirelessly, following it for miles through freezing temperatures until the child was found safe, wrapped in blankets and trembling but unharmed. The courtroom leaned in, captivated by the story. Jurors exchanged glances, murmuring softly, some shaking their heads in disbelief at the skill and dedication of the dog. Spectators whispered excitedly about the idea that an animal could perform such a feat with such accuracy and precision. But amidst the adults' fascination, Lily's attention remained singularly focused. She didn't just watch, she studied Rex. Every subtle movement, the way he shifted his weight, the twitch of his ears, the tilt of his head, was memorized in her young mind. She pointed, her tiny finger tracing invisible lines in the air, and whispered, "Yes, that's him, that's Rex." Her voice carried the quiet authority of certainty, a tone far beyond her years. Clara gently tried to shush her again. "Lily, darling, please, everyone's watching." But Lily couldn't stop herself. The more Officer Daniels spoke, the more her excitement grew. She could feel it in her chest, a fluttering that demanded expression. She didn't understand fully what she was experiencing, but her instincts told her that this dog was important, that he had done something extraordinary, and that somehow she had been a silent witness in the shadows. Officer Daniels described another mission, a high-risk situation involving a suspect hiding in an abandoned building. Rex had silently tracked the man through narrow corridors, signaling his location without alerting the suspect. The suspect was apprehended safely, and Rex had remained composed throughout, alert yet calm. The courtroom hung on every word, imaginations painting vivid images of the tense standoff. Rex, sitting near Officer Daniels, seemed unusually attentive. His gaze shifted from the officer to the crowd, scanning faces, yet returning repeatedly to Lily. There was a subtle awareness in the dog's eyes, a recognition that went unnoticed by most. He wagged his tail just slightly, a small, almost imperceptible signal. Those who knew K9 behavior well might have recognized it, a quiet acknowledgement of someone familiar, someone who mattered. Lily's whispers continued, soft but insistent. He remembers my daddy." Her tiny hands twitched as she pointed again, and this time she leaned slightly forward, pressing herself against her mother's side in excitement. Clara glanced at Michael, a mixture of wonder and worry crossing her face. "It's impossible," she whispered. She couldn't remember this. She was too young. Michael shook his head slowly, unable to tear his eyes away from his daughter. "I don't know, it's like she's seeing it now, like she's remembering something she felt, not something she saw." He looked toward Rex, who sat calmly but alertly. "And I swear he knows her too," he muttered under his breath. The courtroom was silent now, save for Officer Daniels' voice recounting the next story. A tense drug bust where Rex had detected narcotics hidden in a complex maze of crates. Every officer involved had relied on his precision and instincts. The spectators leaned forward, captivated by the drama and skill involved. But Lily didn't react to the suspense. She reacted to recognition. Her eyes shone with understanding, small fingers pointing, as if tracing invisible lines connecting her memories to the dog before her. A few spectators noticed the girl's intensity and whispered among themselves. "Look at her," one said. "She's really focused on that dog." Another added, "It's strange, she seems to know him." Their curiosity grew, but the majority of the room remained absorbed in Officer Daniels' testimony. Meanwhile, Rex's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the flurry of human activity. He sat, tail flicking gently, ears alert, eyes scanning, but always returning to Lily. It was as if he understood her presence, sensing a connection that went beyond words or commands. He had been trained to detect danger, drugs, and even people. Yet here, in the ordinary calm of a courtroom, he seemed to recognize someone who had no official role in his work, a little girl whose heart remembered what her mind could barely comprehend. Lily's whispers grew slightly louder, catching the attention of a few nearby spectators. "He's the one who helped my daddy," she murmured. Clara quickly pressed a hand over her daughter's mouth, but the words had already begun to stir curiosity among those who heard. The adults exchanged puzzled glances, some smiling, some intrigued, others simply amazed that a child so young could speak with such certainty about something no one had told her. Officer Daniels, noticing the intensity of Lily's gaze, paused mid-sentence. He knelt slightly to Rex's level, whispering softly to the dog. Rex responded immediately, shifting slightly but maintaining his position. The subtle gesture caught Clara's eye. "Do you think she whispered. Michael nodded slowly. "I think he recognizes her too. That dog knows something we don't yet understand." Time seemed to stretch in the courtroom. Every eye remained on the officer, the dog, and the tiny child who refused to look away. The stories of heroism, bravery, and precision were no longer just about Rex. They were about the connection between instinct, memory, and recognition. And in the stillness of the room, it became clear that something extraordinary was about to unfold, a moment that no one could anticipate but everyone would remember. Lily's excitement became almost palpable. Her tiny body leaned forward, fingers pointing more insistently, eyes wide and shining. She didn't speak yet, but her expression said everything. She knew, she remembered, she recognized. And Rex, calm and poised, returned the gesture in his own way. A subtle twitch, a flick of the ears, a gentle acknowledgement that this little girl was part of a memory that had quietly waited to resurface. In the quiet observation, the courtroom itself seemed to hold its breath. Adults tried to focus on the testimony, jurors tried to take notes, but all attention kept drifting toward the child and the dog. It was a silent tension, almost magical, a sense that the ordinary could suddenly become extraordinary. A connection, unspoken yet undeniable, had begun to weave itself through the room, touching every person present without a single word being spoken. And in that moment, little Lily was no longer just a quiet child on her mother's lap. She had become the center of a story far bigger than herself, a story of recognition, of instinct, of heroism, and the quiet, invisible threads that connect people, animals, and memories in ways the heart understands before the mind does. The courtroom had settled into an almost hypnotic quiet. Officer Daniels continued his testimony, recounting Rex's feats with precise detail, each story punctuated by the dog's calm yet alert presence. The spectators were absorbed, imagining the nights Rex had tracked suspects or saved missing children, the intensity of each operation vividly painted by Daniels' words. Yet among all the adults, one small observer remained entirely absorbed in a different kind of story, the story of recognition, instinct, and memory. Little Lily sat perched on her mother's lap, her tiny hands clenched in anticipation. She had been whispering softly, pointing subtly, and watching Rex with an intensity that seemed beyond her years. Clara noticed her daughter's restless movements. "Lily, sweetie, be quiet," she whispered again, pressing a hand gently over her daughter's small shoulders. But the child's focus did not waver. Something inside her had clicked, an instinctive certainty that the dog before her was no ordinary animal. As Officer Daniels described Rex's role in a high-risk search for a missing toddler in a snow-covered forest, Lily leaned forward slightly. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak yet. Her tiny finger quivered, pointing almost imperceptibly toward Rex. She was gathering courage, the words forming in her mind for the precise moment they were needed. The courtroom remained unaware that it was on the brink of a scene that would soon leave everyone silent. The officer continued, telling the story of how Rex had located a terrified child, following faint cries through a maze of trees, mud, and ice. Rex didn't hesitate, Daniels said, voice steady but warm. He followed every scent, anticipated dangers, and ensured the child's safety without putting anyone in harm's way. This is the kind of partner every officer dreams of. Lily's voice, small but clear, broke through the room's tension. "That's him," she exclaimed. The courtroom froze instantly. Spectators turned toward the voice, their eyes widening in disbelief. Lawyers stopped shuffling papers. The judge's gavel hovered midair as he leaned forward, astonished. Even Officer Daniels paused mid-sentence, blinking rapidly. He knelt slightly, his hands resting lightly on Rex's harness, unsure of what to make of the sudden exclamation from a tiny 3-year-old girl. "That's Rex," Lily repeated, louder this time, her small hands pointing emphatically. "He helped my daddy." A hush fell over the entire courtroom. It wasn't just quiet. It was a silence that seemed to press against the walls, as if the room itself were leaning in to witness the moment. People exchanged stunned glances. Murmurs rose briefly, then died out as every adult realized that this child was speaking with certainty about a dog she had no reason to know intimately. Clara quickly leaned over, trying to soothe her daughter. "Honey, please, calm down." But Lily wasn't frightened. Her excitement was pure, sincere, and undeniable. She pointed directly at Rex, eyes shining with the memory she couldn't yet fully articulate. "He helped my daddy," she repeated. Officer Daniels crouched a little lower, his gaze meeting Lily's. "You remember him?" he asked softly. Rex, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, shifted slightly, sitting straighter, ears perked, tail flicking gently in acknowledgement. There was a subtle intelligence in the dog's gaze, a silent communication that seemed to say, "Yes, I remember you too." The judge leaned forward from the bench, his gavel forgotten. "Wait a moment," he said, voice low but firm, eyes locked on the girl. "You know this dog?" "Yes," Lily shouted, nodding vigorously. "He helped my daddy, that's Rex, I know him." The courtroom erupted into murmurs, though no one moved from their seats. The energy in the room had shifted completely. Adults were amazed. Some laughed softly, some whispered in awe, and others simply stared, trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. A 3-year-old had identified a police dog with uncanny accuracy, and her confidence was undeniable. Officer Daniels reached out gently, letting Lily touch Rex's fur under his supervision. Her small hands pressed against the dog's side, and Rex leaned into her touch, eyes softening in a way that seemed almost human. The bond, previously invisible, now radiated across the courtroom. Everyone could feel it. The connection between child and dog, instinct and memory intertwined in a moment of silent understanding. Clara and Michael exchanged glances, pride and wonder written on their faces. "She remembered," Clara whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "She truly remembered, even though she was too young to understand before." Michael nodded, unable to tear his eyes away from his daughter. "And Rex, he knows her too. He's reacting, look at him." The courtroom remained captivated. Lawyers forgot their notes, reporters leaned forward, and even the bailiff stopped in the middle of his duties, watching silently. Every person present understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary, a small child connecting with a hero animal in a way that transcended logic or explanation. A few moments passed before Officer Daniels addressed the courtroom again, his voice warm and calm. "Rex is a remarkable dog, yes, but what we're seeing today is a reminder that recognition, memory, and connection don't always follow rules. Sometimes, instinct and heart lead the way. This little girl, she recognizes something important, and Rex, well, he's responding." Spectators nodded slowly, murmurs rising in awe and appreciation. Some whispered about the intelligence of K-9 units, others about the innocence and perception of children. But everyone agreed on one thing. The room had witnessed a rare, almost magical moment, a bond that could not be taught, explained, or replicated, only experienced. Lily continued to point at Rex, whispering softly, "I know you, I remember." Her parents watched, smiling and teary-eyed. The little girl's voice carried a weight far beyond her age. It was the voice of instinct, memory, and recognition, a child speaking with the authority of her heart. Rex shifted slightly, letting out a soft, low whine. The dog's eyes softened and his ears flicked attentively. For a trained police dog, trained to follow commands, track scents, and assess danger, this was unusual behavior. He was responding to something no command could elicit, a child's recognition of a past act of heroism, and perhaps a shared sense of trust and gratitude. The judge finally broke the silence. "This is extraordinary," he said quietly, glancing down at Lily and Rex. "I have never seen anything like this in my courtroom. A child recognizing a K-9 officer and the dog responding, remarkable." The entire room seemed to settle into a new rhythm. While the trial would continue, nothing that followed could match the awe of what had just happened. Little Lily had pointed, spoken, and shared a truth so pure and instinctive that it had frozen a room of adults in amazement. As Officer Daniels concluded his remarks, Lily's hands lowered slightly, but her gaze never wavered. Rex remained alert yet calm, the two of them sharing an invisible bond that transcended language. Spectators whispered softly, some still smiling, some teary-eyed but all profoundly moved. The unexpected moment had passed, yet its impact lingered in the room. It was a story that would be told long after the trial ended, a story of a small child's intuition, a police dog's loyalty, and the quiet power of recognition. And for Lily, it was the beginning of a bond that would define a remarkable day, one she would remember for the rest of her life, even if she couldn't yet understand all of its significance. The courtroom remained unusually still, the echo of Lily's declaration still hanging in the air. "He helped my daddy," she repeated, tiny voice unwavering, pointing at Rex. Officer Daniels knelt closer, carefully resting a hand on Rex's harness while keeping his eyes on Lily. He was a seasoned officer, accustomed to unexpected moments, but nothing in his years of service had prepared him for this. A 3-year-old child, speaking with certainty, had recognized a police dog, and the dog had responded in kind. Clara leaned forward, voice trembling slightly as she tried to explain. "Months ago, Rex was involved in a search near our neighborhood. Michael, your father." She glanced down at Lily, then back at the courtroom, struggling to find the words. "Rex helped locate him during a search operation. Lily, she was very young, too young to fully understand what happened, but she remembered in some way. She remembered him." Michael swallowed hard, emotions caught between pride and disbelief. "I don't understand how she couldn't have seen it. She was barely 2 at the time. She wouldn't have remembered, and yet—" His eyes drifted to Lily, who was still pointing at Rex with her small, unwavering finger. "And she's insisting. She remembers him. She's recognizing him." The judge's expression softened. "So this child is recalling a moment of heroism she witnessed only in part, or perhaps felt instinctively months ago?" he asked. The courtroom was silent, captivated. Even the lawyers, normally skeptical and distracted, leaned forward, drawn into the extraordinary scene. "Yes," Clara whispered. "She remembers the instinct, the presence, the courage. Even without full understanding, she remembers." Rex shifted slightly, a low, almost imperceptible whine escaping his throat. His eyes softened, ears flicking toward Lily. To anyone else it was a small gesture. To Officer Daniels it was profound. Rex wasn't responding to a command. He was responding to recognition. In that instant, the dog and child shared a bond deeper than training, deeper than experience, a silent acknowledgement of heroism, bravery, and trust. Whispers began to spread throughout the courtroom. Spectators murmured in awe. "Did you see that? The dog knows her," one whispered. Another added, "It's like he remembers what she felt that day." Even among seasoned law enforcement officers in attendance, there was a collective sense of wonder. Many had worked with K-9 units for years, but few had witnessed a moment so intimate, so instinctive, so impossible to explain. Officer Daniels spoke softly to the room, his tone both professional and emotional. "Rex has been involved in many operations, but this is special. What we are seeing isn't training or command response. It's a connection, a recognition, a bond between a child and a dog who saved her father. It's instinct, memory, and emotion all combined, and it's rare, extraordinary, and unforgettable." Lily's tiny hands trembled slightly as she continued to point. Her lips formed the words before she could speak them aloud. "You saved him, you saved my daddy," she whispered softly. The courtroom shifted, leaning in to catch the child's voice. The judge's gavel rested silently on the bench, forgotten. Lawyers paused mid-note-taking. Spectators exchanged glances, some with tears forming, others smiling in awe. Clara held her daughter tightly, a sense of pride and wonder swelling in her chest. "Yes, honey," she whispered. "He did save your daddy." Michael, overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion, looked at Officer Daniels. "Thank you for everything you and Rex did that day. You saved him, and now, seeing Lily recognize Rex, I can't even put it into words." Officer Daniels smiled, a mixture of pride and humility on his face. "Rex is remarkable," he said, glancing down at the dog. "But what we've witnessed today is even more remarkable. the bond he has formed instinctively with a child who remembers what words cannot describe. Lily, you have an extraordinary heart. You recognized a hero instinctively, and Rex, he recognized you. Rex shifted again, leaning slightly toward Lily. His eyes were soft but alert, intelligent and responsive. To those who understood K9 behavior, it was clear he recognized her presence as significant, meaningful. To the adults in the room, it was magical, almost impossible to explain. But there was no denying the truth of the moment. Child and dog were connected in a way that transcended understanding. The judge leaned forward, voice gentle. I have seen many cases, witnessed countless testimonies, and presided over numerous trials, he said. But today in this courtroom, we are witnessing something beyond ordinary. This child, this dog, a bond that cannot be taught, cannot be explained, yet exists here now. It is rare and it is beautiful. Spectators nodded, some whispering softly to one another. It's incredible, one said. The connection, the memory, another added, it's like a miracle. Lily continued to point at Rex, tiny lips forming the words. I know you, I remember. She didn't understand fully what she was saying, but instinct and memory guided her. She remembered the day, the tension, the fear, the relief. She remembered Rex's presence, his calm bravery, the sense of safety he brought. Her small mind had preserved it all, waiting for the moment to emerge. Clara held her daughter's hand, voice choked with emotion. Yes, you remember. You recognized him. You were paying attention even when you were too young to understand. Michael's eyes glistened. And he remembered you, he whispered, glancing at Rex. Look at him, he knows her, he knows. Rex's tail flicked gently. His eyes softened. The dog leaned slightly toward Lily, as if confirming silently the child's recognition. It was more than obedience or training. It was understanding, memory, instinct, and trust. The courtroom watched, captivated by the simple yet profound communication between the child and the dog. Officer Daniels addressed the room again, voice steady but gentle. Rex has saved lives before, yes, but today he is teaching us something we often overlook. Recognition isn't just about seeing or hearing. It's about remembering, feeling, understanding, and sometimes it is felt more than it is spoken. Lily recognized Rex instinctively, and Rex recognized her in return. It is a rare and beautiful connection. The judge, leaning back in his chair, smiled gently. Let this serve as a reminder to all of us, he said. Not all heroes wear uniforms. Not all bravery is obvious. And sometimes the smallest among us, those we least expect, can witness, understand, and honor heroism in ways that astound us all. The courtroom remained silent for a few moments, every person present caught in the gravity of the revelation. Lily, small but confident, continued to look at Rex with awe and certainty. Her tiny hands rested lightly on her mother's lap, still pointing intermittently. Rex remained calm, alert, responsive, eyes soft but attentive. They shared an unspoken understanding, a bond that words could not capture. Clara whispered to Michael, voice soft and proud. She knew, she really knew. Even at 3 years old, she recognized a hero. Michael nodded, glancing at Lily and Rex. And he recognized her, he said. It's a connection that will stay with all of us forever. The courtroom murmurs began to rise gently as people processed what had just occurred. Spectators whispered to each other, exchanging looks of amazement. Some reached for their phones to capture the moment, though they could only record the scene, not the invisible bond that had formed. Lawyers smiled quietly at each other, shaken but touched. The judge's expression softened, and Officer Daniels stood, allowing Lily to approach Rex under careful supervision. For the first time, the courtroom seemed to breathe again, but the revelation had left its mark. Everyone who had witnessed it would carry the memory. A small child recognizing a police dog who had saved her father, and the dog responding instinctively, acknowledging her presence, confirming the bond. It was a story that transcended words, a story of instinct, memory, and heroism, shared between a child and a dog in the most extraordinary way. It was a story no one in that room would ever forget, And for Lily, it was a moment of recognition that would shape her understanding of courage, trust, and the quiet power of connection for the rest of her life. The courtroom had been transformed. What began as a routine day of testimony had shifted into something extraordinary. Adults who were there for legal procedure found themselves captivated by an event that defied expectation, a moment that reminded them of the rare intersections of innocence, memory, and heroism. Little Lily, perched on her mother's lap, had revealed an instinctive recognition of Rex, the police dog who had saved her father months ago, and the dog had responded in kind. The weight of that connection hung in the room like a tangible presence. Spectators whispered quietly to one another, voices laced with awe. "Did you see that?" one woman murmured. "A child recognized a K-9 officer and the dog knew her too." Another nodded, eyes wide. "It's incredible, I've never seen anything like it. He's responding to her." Even the more skeptical observers, those who had been cynical about K-9 hero stories, found themselves moved. Their attention had shifted from the procedural to the profound. Lawyers paused mid-note-taking, judges leaned forward in their seats, and reporters who had been preparing to document a standard courtroom drama now found themselves witnessing a story of instinct, courage, and human-animal connection unfold before them. Officer Daniels knelt beside Rex, his hand resting lightly on the dog's harness. "What we're seeing here," he said, voice calm yet emotional, "is beyond training or commands. This is instinct, recognition, memory, and a bond that transcends words." Lily recognized Rex months after an event she couldn't fully comprehend, and Rex, he acknowledged her presence. "It's remarkable, and it's rare." The judge, leaning on the bench with the gavel momentarily forgotten, nodded slowly. "Indeed," he said, "I have presided over countless cases, witnessed innumerable testimonies, and yet I have never seen a display of recognition, instinct, and bond quite like this. This child and this dog, small in size but monumental in significance, have reminded us of something the law cannot measure: the quiet power of memory, courage, and trust." Lily's parents, Clara and Michael, exchanged glances, pride and emotion clear on their faces. Clara whispered softly, "She's extraordinary even at 3 years old." Michael nodded, his gaze fixed on his daughter. "And Rex, he's extraordinary too. Look at how he's responding." Rex, ears perked and eyes soft, shifted slightly, leaning toward Lily in subtle acknowledgement of their connection. The courtroom was no longer just a room for trials. It had become a space of awe and reverence. Spectators sat in quiet amazement, captivated by the story unfolding in real time. Every eye in the room was drawn to the small child who had identified a K-9 officer months after a heroic act, and to the dog who had responded instinctively to her recognition. It was a rare and beautiful display of human-animal connection, one that transcended understanding yet could be felt deeply by all present. One of the jurors, a middle-aged woman with glasses, whispered to her neighbor, "It's like they understand each other, not just recognition, something deeper." The man nodded, voice soft. "Yes, trust, memory, instinct. Something no one can teach is something only experienced." Even the court reporter, whose job was typically mechanical, found herself unable to focus solely on transcribing words. Her eyes kept drifting toward Lily and Rex, captivated by the quiet, profound moment. Every subtle movement of the dog, every glance exchanged between child and canine, carried emotional weight far beyond the testimony itself. A few members of the press had been present, cameras ready to capture the formal proceedings, but they quickly realized that what was happening could not be fully conveyed in pictures alone. The quiet awe, the invisible bond, the instinctive recognition, these were things that could only be experienced, not captured. And yet, they captured the atmosphere nonetheless, recording the stunned expressions, the gasps of awe, and the gentle gestures that spoke louder than words. Officer Daniels continued, his voice calm yet reverent. "Rex has saved lives on multiple occasions. He has tracked missing persons, alerted officers to danger, and assisted in apprehending suspects. But what we've witnessed today is different." Lily recognized him without prompting, without explanation, and he responded, "This is instinct, memory, and connection intertwined in the most remarkable way." The judge nodded again, glancing at Lily. "And let it be noted," he said softly, "that in a courtroom full of adults, the insight of a 3-year-old has reminded us of a truth we often overlook. Bravery, heroism, and recognition are not always measured in actions alone. They are sometimes felt, understood, and acknowledged instinctively." Lily's small hands remained raised slightly, pointing toward Rex, eyes wide with wonder and recognition. "He remembers me," she whispered. "I remember him." Clara squeezed her daughter's hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, honey," she said softly. "You remembered, you recognized him, and he recognized you." Rex let out a low, gentle whine, a sound that carried more meaning than any bark. He shifted slightly, lowering his head and letting his nose brush against Lily's small hand. The gesture was subtle, but everyone in the courtroom could feel its significance. The dog, trained to obey, track, and protect, had instinctively acknowledged the child who had recognized him. It was a silent confirmation of trust, memory, and understanding. Michael whispered to Clara, voice trembling, "It's incredible." She was too young to understand fully, yet she remembered. "And he's responding. It's like they're speaking without words." Clara nodded, unable to speak. She watched her daughter, captivated by the small, intuitive gestures that spoke volumes. Lily's recognition, Rex's response, the room's quiet awe, everything combined into a moment that transcended routine and procedure. It was extraordinary. Spectators continued to whisper, sharing their amazement quietly. "Did you see how he leaned toward her?" one said. "He knows her," another added. "It's like they understand each other in a way no one else does." Even the attorneys, normally preoccupied with evidence and legal strategy, paused in their work. They watched, captivated by the living story unfolding before them. What had started as testimony about a dog's heroism had become a narrative of instinct, memory, and emotional connection. And in the center of it all, a tiny child and a police dog had reminded everyone present of the extraordinary moments that exist beyond explanation. Officer Daniels knelt slightly, stroking Rex's neck gently. "This is a lesson for all of us," he said softly. "Not every hero wears a badge. Not every brave act is remembered immediately. Sometimes memory waits until the heart is ready to recognize it. And sometimes recognition comes from the smallest, most unexpected witnesses, like Lily." The judge leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. "Let the record show," he said, "that in this courtroom, a 3-year-old child has recognized a police dog months after a heroic act, and the dog has responded with instinctive recognition. It is a rare and extraordinary display of memory, trust, and courage." For several minutes, the courtroom remained silent. Spectators, jurors, and staff absorbed the magnitude of the moment. Lily's parents whispered quietly to each other, proud and amazed. Officer Daniels stood, letting Lily approach Rex carefully, supervised but free to interact. The child's small hands rested on the dog's fur, her eyes shining with recognition and joy. Rex leaned into the touch, calm yet attentive, acknowledging the bond without words. The entire courtroom seemed to exhale collectively, a mixture of awe, reverence, and emotional connection filling the room. It was a scene that no one would forget. A 3-year-old girl instinctively recognizing a hero dog who had saved her father, and the dog responding with understanding and acknowledgement. The courtroom, filled with adults accustomed to control and procedure, had witnessed something spontaneous, instinctive, and deeply human. Whispers continued, growing quieter as the courtroom absorbed the moment fully. "Incredible," one spectator murmured. "Absolutely incredible." Another added, "It's more than a story, it's a reminder of what courage and connection truly mean." Even the judge, typically reserved and stoic, allowed a small smile to spread across his face. "This courtroom," he said softly, "has witnessed a rare reminder of heroism, recognition, and instinct. Let it inspire all of us to pay attention to the extraordinary moments that occur when we least expect them. Lily, small yet confident, remained pointing gently at Rex, her tiny voice whispering, "I remember, I know him." The dog responded subtly, his eyes soft and attentive, tail flicking slightly. Together they shared a silent bond that no one else could fully explain, yet everyone in the room could feel. The courtroom remained hushed, the air thick with a mixture of awe and quiet reverence. Little Lily, perched on her mother's lap, had already pointed out Rex, declaring with certainty that he was the dog who had helped her father. But until now, her interaction with him had been limited to gestures, whispers, and fleeting touches under her mother's watchful hand. The moment had captured the attention of every adult in the room, yet the climax, the moment when instinct, recognition, and emotion fully merged, was about to unfold. Officer Daniels knelt beside Rex, a calm presence amid the ripple of whispers. "Lily," he said gently, lowering his voice so only she could hear, "would you like to meet him properly, to say hello?" The child's eyes widened. She nodded eagerly, her tiny hands trembling with anticipation. "Yes," she whispered, "I want to say hello." Clara smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. "Go ahead, sweetheart. He's very gentle," she said softly. Michael nodded, his eyes gleaming with pride and excitement. "It's your moment, Lily," he murmured. With careful supervision, Officer Daniels guided Lily toward Rex. The dog remained calm, ears alert and tail flicking slowly, as if sensing the importance of the encounter. Every step Lily took seemed purposeful, her gaze locked on Rex. The courtroom leaned in collectively, aware that they were about to witness something extraordinary, a child and a dog recognizing each other in a bond that transcended words. Lily extended a tiny hand toward Rex's nose. The dog sniffed gently, his large head tilting slightly, eyes soft and attentive. The child giggled softly, a mixture of delight and recognition. "It's really you," she whispered, her small fingers lightly brushing Rex's fur. "I remember you." Rex responded subtly but unmistakably. He leaned closer, his warm breath brushing Lily's hand, and nudged her gently with his nose. It was a silent acknowledgement, a confirmation of recognition that needed no words. The courtroom, silent but captivated, watched the scene unfold, eyes wide with amazement. Clara and Michael exchanged glances, their hearts swelling. "She's connecting with him," Clara whispered. "It's beautiful." Michael nodded. "And he's responding. Look at how calm he is, how aware. It's like he remembers her just as clearly as she remembers him." Lily's confidence grew as Rex remained gentle and attentive. She reached up, her small hands touching his head and ears, stroking him softly. The dog closed his eyes briefly, leaning into her touch. It was a moment of pure connection, trust, recognition, and affection shared silently between child and dog. Officer Daniels knelt close, smiling quietly. "Rex, this is Lily," he said softly. "She's the little girl you helped months ago. She remembers you." Rex tilted his head slightly, ears flicking as if confirming her identity, tail wagging slowly in approval. The subtle gestures were enough for those who understood K9 behavior. The dog recognized her and the bond had been fully acknowledged. The courtroom was captivated. Witnesses, spectators, and jurors leaned forward, watching intently as the child and dog interacted. It was more than a simple introduction. It was the culmination of months of memory, instinct, and emotion. Every subtle movement, Rex's gentle nudges, Lily's soft giggles, the way her tiny hands explored his fur, carried meaning. It was recognition made tangible. Lily whispered softly, "Thank you for helping my daddy." Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, yet it was clear and sincere. Rex responded instinctively, nudging her hand again and letting out a soft, low whine. The gesture seemed to convey understanding, a silent message. "I remember. I was there. I helped." The courtroom collectively exhaled. Adults who had been skeptical, distracted, or merely curious moments before now sat in awe, witnessing a bond that defied explanation. It was instinct, memory, and emotion all intertwined, displayed so naturally that it left everyone present speechless. One juror whispered to another, voice hushed but filled with wonder. "It's incredible. She's 3 years old, and yet she understands the significance of what he did. And he's responding. You can see it in his eyes." A courtroom observer, a seasoned police officer, nodded slowly. "I've worked with K-9 units for years," he said quietly. "I've never seen a connection like this. Not with humans, not with children. This is remarkable." Even the judge, normally reserved and stoic, allowed a small smile. "Let this be noted," he said gently. "We have witnessed an extraordinary moment today. A child recognizing a hero dog who saved her father, and the dog acknowledging her presence instinctively. This is beyond procedure, beyond testimony. It is a display of connection, memory, and courage that touches every person in this room." Lily, encouraged by Rex's gentle response, began to speak more confidently. "I knew it was you," she said softly, eyes shining. "I remembered you from the day you helped Daddy. I didn't know how, but I remembered. And now I can say hello properly." Rex leaned in, nudging her gently again, allowing her to stroke his head and ears. His calm demeanor, attentiveness, and gentle responses communicated volumes to those watching. This was a dog who understood instinctively, who recognized a bond that had begun months ago. Clara whispered softly to Michael, eyes glistening. "She's fully connecting with him. Look at how comfortable she is, how confident. It's beautiful." Michael nodded. "And Rex, he's responding. You can see it in the way he leans in, the way he allows her to touch him. It's recognition, it's trust, it's incredible." Lily's small fingers traced gentle lines across Rex's fur, exploring the contours of his head and ears. The dog's eyes softened, and his tail wagged slowly, a subtle rhythm that matched the child's heartbeat. It was as if they were communicating silently, without words, understanding each other through instinct and memory alone. Officer Daniels, watching quietly, allowed the moment to unfold without interruption. He knew that this bond was delicate, rare, and profound. Any attempt to direct it would have diminished its authenticity. So he knelt silently, letting the child and dog interact naturally, aware that the scene was one of those rare, unforgettable moments in life. Spectators whispered softly, capturing what they could in words and memory. "It's more than recognition," one murmured. "It's understanding, trust, and gratitude all at once." Another added, "It's like a miracle in the courtroom." Lily finally smiled, leaning forward to press her small forehead gently against Rex's massive head. "I remember," she whispered. "I know you, and I'm glad you're here." Rex let out a soft, low whine, leaning closer in response. It was the final, subtle confirmation. Recognition complete, bond cemented. The connection between child and dog, forged in instinct, memory, and heroism, was now fully realized for all to witness. The courtroom remained silent, not from boredom or discipline, but from reverence. Adults, jurors, spectators, and officers alike understood that they had just witnessed something extraordinary, a moment of instinctive recognition, trust, and shared memory between a child and a dog who had once saved her father. Clara whispered to Michael, tears in her eyes. "She's never going to forget this, and neither will Rex." Michael nodded, smiling softly. "And neither will we," he said. "We've witnessed something rare, something unforgettable, a bond that will stay with all of us forever." Lily giggled softly, eyes sparkling. "I'm glad I remembered," she whispered, stroking Rex gently. "And I'm glad you remembered me too." Rex responded with a soft whine, nudging her again, his tail flicking slowly in acknowledgement. The bond was complete, and the courtroom had become witness to a moment that transcended words, a moment of instinct, recognition, and shared heroism that would remain etched in memory forever. The courtroom, once filled with the usual hum of legal proceedings, now felt different. The extraordinary interaction between Lily and Rex had transformed the space. Adults whispered in awe, Reporters paused to take notes, and jurors leaned back in their seats, still digesting what they had witnessed. It wasn't merely a story of a dog saving a life. It was a living example of instinct, recognition, and trust that no words could fully capture. Lily, small and confident, remained near Rex. Her tiny hands gently stroked his fur, her fingers tracing the contours of his head and ears as though memorizing them. Her eyes shone with delight and certainty, reflecting a bond that had begun months ago yet had never been formally acknowledged, until now. Clara and Michael watched their daughter, emotions welling in their eyes. "She's incredible," Clara whispered, squeezing Michael's hand. She recognized him even at 3 years old, and now, seeing her interact with him, it's beautiful. Michael nodded, glancing at Rex. "And Rex, he's remarkable too. Look at him, calm, attentive, gentle. He knows her just as she knows him. That connection, it's something rare." Officer Daniels stood quietly nearby, giving Lily and Rex the space to interact naturally. He knew better than anyone that this bond couldn't be forced. Any interference would diminish the authenticity of the moment. So he watched silently, allowing instinct and memory to guide the interaction, marveling at the quiet power of recognition unfolding before him. Lily leaned forward, her small forehead resting against Rex's massive head. "I'm glad I remembered," she whispered softly, "and I'm glad you remembered me too." Rex responded instinctively, nudging her hand gently with his nose, tail flicking slowly in acknowledgement. It was subtle yet profound, a confirmation of recognition, trust, and mutual understanding. The courtroom, now silent except for the occasional low whine from Rex, watched the moment unfold, captivated by the emotional resonance of the interaction. The judge, leaning on the bench, allowed a small, approving smile. "Let it be noted in the record," he said gently, "that a 3-year-old child has recognized a K-9 officer who saved her father, and the dog has acknowledged her instinctively. This is a rare moment of recognition, memory, and bond that transcends ordinary understanding." Spectators whispered quietly, their voices filled with awe. "It's incredible the connection between them," one woman murmured. Another nodded, whispering, "It's more than recognition, it's trust, memory, and understanding all at once." Even the reporters present, who had been ready to document a standard courtroom procedure, were captivated. They scribbled notes furiously, trying to capture the extraordinary essence of the moment, though they knew that no words or images could fully convey the bond between child and dog. Officer Daniels knelt near Rex, speaking softly. "Rex," he said, "this is Lily, the little girl you helped months ago. She remembers you." The dog tilted his head slightly, ears flicking, eyes soft yet attentive, a subtle gesture confirming recognition. Lily giggled softly, her small hands tracing gentle patterns along Rex's fur. "You were there, you saved my daddy," she whispered, "and now you remember me too." The courtroom collectively exhaled. Adults, jurors, and spectators alike felt the gravity of the moment, understanding that they had witnessed something extraordinary. It was a rare and unrepeatable display of instinct, recognition, and emotion that transcended the ordinary narrative of heroism. Clara whispered softly to Michael, tears welling in her eyes. "She's going to remember this forever, and so will Rex." Michael nodded, smiling softly. "And so will everyone here. It's a moment none of us will forget." The judge, observing the interaction, added, "In times like these, we are reminded that heroism is not just in actions. It's in memory, in recognition, and in the bonds that form quietly beyond explanation. Today, we have witnessed one of those rare moments." Officer Daniels finally allowed Lily to stand beside Rex, her small hands resting confidently on his side. The dog remained calm, alert, and gentle, leaning slightly toward her as if confirming that the bond was mutual. The room remained silent, every person present understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Rex nudged Lily gently with his nose, eliciting a soft giggle from the child. "You remember me," she said, eyes shining. "And I remember you." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath as the two shared a quiet, profound moment, a silent dialogue of trust, recognition, and gratitude. No words were needed. The gestures, the subtle movements, and the shared presence conveyed everything that mattered. Spectators began to murmur quietly among themselves, their voices tinged with awe and reverence. "It's more than a story of a dog saving a life," one said. "It's a story of recognition, connection, and memory." Another added, "It's a reminder of how powerful the bonds between humans and animals can be." Clara leaned down, whispering to Lily, "You did so well, sweetheart. You remembered and you let Rex know you recognized him. It's a very special thing." Lily smiled, small hands still stroking Rex's fur. "I remembered," she said softly, "and I'm happy he remembered me too." Michael knelt beside her, voice gentle. "And that's something you'll carry with you forever. You recognized a hero and he recognized you. That's extraordinary, Lily." Rex shifted slightly, allowing Lily to place both her small hands on his head. He closed his eyes briefly, leaning into the gentle touch. The subtle gesture spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Officer Daniels watched quietly, pride evident on his face. "This is the kind of moment that makes everything we do worthwhile," he said softly to the courtroom. "Rex has saved lives, yes, but today he has also shared a bond that reminds us all why we do this work. Instinct, recognition, and trust, they exist in ways words cannot describe, and we are lucky to witness it." The judge, observing the scene, nodded in agreement. Let today be remembered not just for the proceedings of the court, but for the extraordinary bond we have witnessed between a child and a dog, a moment of instinct, memory, and trust that will inspire all of us. The courtroom gradually began to return to routine. Spectators quietly returned to their seats, jurors resumed their focus, and lawyers continued their work, but the atmosphere remained transformed. The memory of Lily and Rex's interaction lingered, a reminder that extraordinary moments can occur in the most unexpected places, between the most unexpected participants. Clara and Michael gathered Lily into their arms briefly, hugging her tightly. "You did something amazing today," Clara whispered. "You recognized Rex, and you shared a bond that no one here will ever forget." Michael smiled, his voice soft and emotional. "And he recognized you too, Lily. That bond, it's rare and special. You'll remember it forever." Lily giggled softly, small hands resting on Rex as the dog remained calm and attentive. "I remember," she whispered, "and I'm glad he remembers me too." Officer Daniels finally stood, smiling. "Rex, let's give Lily one more nuzzle," he said gently. The dog responded immediately, nudging her hand with his nose one last time, tail flicking in contentment. The judge looked down at the scene with a rare smile. "Today, we've witnessed a story that transcends the ordinary," he said softly. "A story of recognition, memory, and the quiet heroism of a dog and the instinctive wisdom of a child. Let it be remembered." The courtroom slowly returned to its formal proceedings, but the magic of the moment lingered. Spectators left with a sense of awe, jurors carried the memory in their hearts, and Lily and her parents would forever remember the day when a 3-year-old girl and a police dog recognized each other, creating a bond that could never be broken. As they left the courtroom, Lily's small hand rested confidently on Rex's fur, the dog walking calmly beside her. The bond had been established, recognition cemented, and the story, one of instinct, heroism, and connection, would remain a treasured memory for all who had witnessed it. It was more than a story. It was a moment to remember.